Masters of the Universe, the Legends of Grayskull podcast.
Legends of Grayskull is a fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Sean Scavarna and Matthew Duke as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Etheria, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to L.O.G on MYP. This is episode 4, The Courage of Adam. I'm back here again. We've got Curtis Ackerman. I am Matthew Duch, and this is the mini-series where we are going through every episode of the Mike Young Productions He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon series, episode by episode. And we're going to keep going until we're through all 39. So, Curtis, how does it feel to be out of the beginning?
It feels good. Feels good to have, we're in the kind of the one-off type episodes. Obviously, there's a, overarching story kind of going through, but to have kind of a beginning and end to each of these episodes is a lot better, I think.
Absolutely. So we'll start, as always, with the important details, which I had pulled up on my phone a second ago. So this is The Courage of Adam. This is still written by Dean Stefan and directed by Gary Hartel. I am on the wrong... Oh, no, there it is. And this one originally aired on September 20th, 2002. No first-time characters this episode. We do have a first-time creature in the giant bone monster. And then we do have our first toy vehicles showing up this episode.
I would argue that there may be a first-time character, possibly.
Okay, what you got? Because this is a segment.
I think that you could maybe kind of say that it's first time with Faker. Kind of, maybe.
But they never realized that story beat. So we could put Man-at-Arms training robots in there if you would like.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, as I was watching it, there's the part that happens, and it made me realize that they pulled that pretty much directly from there for Revelation. Him showing up, and but it's the reverse,
right?
Fooling Skeletor instead of, fooling the sorceress. So
okay, I can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for the toy vehicles, we do have the Bat Fight Pack. We see the Battle Hawks and the Battle Tank for the first time. So before we just had Sky Sleds, which oddly enough were never released as toys. So
yeah.
Our summary for the episode this episode starts with Adam questioning if He-Man will continue to be needed. And he feels that if he steps up in battle, that He-Man will no longer be needed, and he can get some respect out of his father and Teela. As he's preparing to step up and be more of a warrior, Skeletor is attempting to track down He-Man. Unfortunately, all his attempts are unsuccessful, so instead he decides to play on He-Man's sentimentality. And since he can no longer get to King Randor, who's under heavy guard, he sets his sights on capturing Prince Adam to lure He-Man out.
Prince Alan.
Which
is what he calls him in the episode.
Oh, it's great. Stratos is at the same time heading back to Avion to settle a trade dispute with the Andrenids. Adam volunteers to accompany him, getting some praise from his father in doing so, but ultimately set himself up to be captured by Skeletor. As Adam's
for those that may not be familiar with the Adrenids, that's Buzz-Off's race.
Spoiler
basically.
alert.
So, yeah.
As Adam's being held captive in Snake Mountain, Skeletor says that only He-Man appearing will save him. Big problem for Adam. Man-at-Arms concocts a scheme involving Cringer Orko and his new training robots in order to rescue Prince Adam. They are successful, and Adam is able to change back into He-Man, defeat the giant bone monster, and comes to the conclusion that He-Man will always be needed. So right off the bat, I know there's a lot going on in this episode. I love how this episode starts off. We get to see He-Man training, because like we just got off the beginning. We made all the points during that, to its credit, where He-Man is just jumping into stuff head first, not really having a plan, not really knowing the limits of his powers. So it was cool to see here that Man-at-Arms is helping him out here. They're testing it, seeing what he can and can't do. We get our Shazam moment, to quote Curtis in the previous episode.
Yeah. It actually didn't start out with that, though.
Well, I wanted to start with that.
Okay, but that's not how the episode starts.
The first hero scene.
Gotcha. Because the episode starts with Skeletor kind of going back and thinking over the previous encounter with He-Man and what's going on. And he comes to this revelation, no pun intended, that the powers of the council kind of disappeared at the same time that these powers arrive for He-Man, and he puts 2 and 2 together and says, you know, there's some sort of connection there, and we have to get that. And then it immediately goes into He-Man fighting I mean, I knew and you knew because we've seen this before, but when you watch it for the first time, it's just like all of a sudden He-Man's fighting these evil warriors, and it's kind of
pretty
weird.
Quickly knew with Man-at-Arms lounging, hitting buttons, you know.
You can kind of draw from it, but you don't know immediately like what's going on. And then, then you come to the realization that they're kind of like these robots with, I guess, like holograms around them would be
holograms, but they're also physical, like because He-Man is doing battle with them.
There is like a skeleton inside, but I don't know if the projection of the body is something that's physical or if it's just the robot inside that's physical. I don't know. It's weird.
I think it still takes form from the way, at least the way they animate it. We're probably overthinking it, but you know, like I think at one point, I think it's the Beast Man training robot, like He-Man actually grabs the fur and like throws him. So there is something there. Very high tech.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's you know, we kind of talked about that in the past with the beginning, kind of him not knowing his limits. Well, now we're seeing, you know, on top of He-Man not knowing his limits, Man-at-Arms doesn't know his limits, and so he's kind of putting him to the test and seeing, you know, how far can we kind of push this thing and what things can he do, which is interesting.
Yeah. And I like it. It shows that progression, and it makes it even harder when Adam's getting the grief, because he's like, dude, I'm working overtime here. Like Adam's doing stuff, and then, you know, and then I have to go sneak off and do all this stuff as He-Man too. Like I'm pulling double duty here, and yet I'm getting grief from everybody.
Yeah.
And to your point about the Skeletor scene, we're setting the table right off the bat that this Skeletor is very intelligent. You know, there's a reason he's leading the evil warriors. He's not just, here's my harebrained scheme. Right. You know, he's actually putting in the time. He's seeing connections where no one else is. So he's, you know, we're really showcasing that this Skeletor is not to be taken lightly. You know, he's not just a physical threat. He's going to outsmart you at the same time.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it on the past one. I think they're really playing up differently than in Filmation, that there is a huge strength difference between He-Man and Skeletor. And so in order for Skeletor to stand a chance, yeah, he's got to use his wits. He's got to use schemes and spying and, all the things at his disposal in order to try to, one up He-Man, because just going toe to toe, it's not going to work. So,
right. And great scene. You mentioned it during the summary. Skeletor keeps calling Adam Allen. Like, I love those little bits where it's like, he's a smart Skeletor, but he's focused on this. Like, this little cowardly prince, that means nothing to me.
And I don't know how much of it is that he really doesn't know his name's Adam and how much of it is that he's just being disrespectful. Like, I think I'm about 50-50.
If it was if Adam was there and he was doing it, I would go the disrespectful. But I think it's more just yes, there's a prince, but other than that, that's meaningless. He might be good bait, but that's about it. So he's like, this Skeletor is prioritizing what's important here. And he's not going to pay attention to this, which is why I go back and forth. It seems like every viewing I go back and forth how I feel about the fact that in episode 4 of this series, Beastman figures out He-Man's secret identity. I mean, he literally does. His hounds are sent to track down He-Man, and they bring back Adam's gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about that?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Beastman doesn't put that together. Right. And then the fact that, I think Skeletor he's more focused on Beastman and his minions are idiots than the fact that they did it right. And it really is, that there's that connection there. So that one didn't bother me. But there is another part later in the episode that bothers me. But we'll get to that.
I go back and I like the joke of it, but at the same time, when you really think about it, it's like, man, it's like right there. But I think that also, now that we're talking about it, it plays up to what we're saying. Where like Prince Allen is such an insignificant dot on Skeletor's wall of newspaper clippings and string that like it doesn't matter. Like, there's no way he can be something important in the Elders and He-Man and Randor, and like this is what I'm focused on. So but yeah, then we get to some Teela Adam training. I gotta tell you, I know you're probably gonna rip Teela apart, but I'm still okay with their little sibling rivalry.
Okay. First off, I would say it's interesting that he goes from training with Man-at-Arms as He-Man to immediately, like, the next thing we see is him training with Teela.
That's what I'm saying.
Adam, like, his whole day is just training, and she, she continues to do her thing, which, whatever. I think that it's disrespectful. I think that, whatever, but it's not right now. I don't want to give anything away. We'll talk more about this, but right now I don't have as much of an issue with this immediate scene here.
I felt like when it's the two of them training, like I said, I think our biggest disconnect between the two of us is the fact that I'm okay with Teela seeing Adam as an equal, and I know you're more like he is a prince, and I get that, but to Teela, it's Adam that I've known my whole life, and I'm cool with that. This here felt
I am okay with that in this instance when it's the two of them and she is trying to train him. She's trying to get him to step up and be the best version of himself, and using some of that maybe teasing or whatever to get him to step up to the next level. I'm okay with. When she does it in front of other people, including in front of Randor, that's when I start having an issue and feeling like this has crossed a line and you have now been disrespectful to a prince in front of the king. That's not cool. So in this instance, I'm with you and I'm okay.
Okay. The other cool thing to point out, just for the fact that, we're coming off of Filmation, is the fact that they're in different clothes. They have like their training outfits with like the gloves so they can handle that fireball. Especially watching this back in 2002, it just like it's one of those things where, you know, Adam was in the same outfit every episode of Filmation. Bart Simpson always wears the same clothing, and then you get here where it's like, wait a minute, like they're actually, you know, just little things like that excited us back in the day with like, oh, clothing changes.
And I noticed in a couple different spots in this episode too that Adam looks more fit than I remember him in this series. And I think with the first time I watched it, it's such a difference from Adam in Filmation that you kind of think of him as scrawny compared to that. But he's actually very fit, muscular. He's athletic. You know, he's not, you know, some lazy skinny kid.
Right.
Like,
and he's only 16.
Fit.
You know, they cement in there he is 16. That was his 16th birthday in the beginning. So
yeah.
And I think part of that also is not to bash or anything, just pure fact, coming off of Revelation Adam, where I this is the Adam I wish Revelation had, where he's still smaller, he's still shorter, like, but he's fit. And that was my biggest disappointment in Revelation, was how scrawny they made Adam, you know, because he's always been, you know, I wish I had the physique of Adam at my age, you know?
Yeah. Then we have the thing with Stratos, and Stratos is basically telling Randor he needs to leave. He needs to go take care of business. And Randor is okay with that, but he tells him he needs to take a master with him.
Yep.
And Adam volunteers because Adam's still trying to prove himself and show to his dad and everybody else that he's not, you know, afraid. He's willing to get in, you know, he's willing to mix it up. The way I see it is, like, if I'm Stratos, it's like, oh, great. Now I got to babysit this kid too. Like, I'm already dealing with this difficult negotiation.
Right.
Now I got to babysit his son.
But Stratos is too cool to even give an inkling of that's how he feels. Like,
right.
He is,
but that's how I would feel. Like, it's not like he's sending Ram Man with him, or he's sending, you know, Man at Arms or some grizzled veteran, or, you know, whatever. Like, he's not sending muscle with him. I'm just going to send my son. And it's like, it's almost like Stratos is having to do Randor a favor and, like, you know, hey, go take my son with you, and hopefully he comes back as a man.
Yeah, I'm not getting through to him, so you might as well have a crack.
Right.
It's the boarding school thing. Like, yeah, go live in Avion for a year and see what happens.
Right.
I will say I like that, you know, besides your spoiler alert, the fact that they just mentioned the Andrenids, which is new to MYP, new to this series, and then they just leave it there. And that's
I thought it was odd. Just looking back on it, because I didn't remember them doing that and leaving it for an episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is again, you know, the kind of excitement one in the past. Once episode 5 came out, you're like, oh shit, they were actually setting something up, which, you know, and I like that early on, they're like, no, like, pay attention. There's gonna be stuff, like you said, it's a standalone episode, but we're going to set some seeds here. So that was refreshing. And just that to right out the gate, once we're through the beginning, to go, yeah, well, like, they don't mention Buzz Off. They don't just drop Andrenids and walk away. I think that's a really cool move to where you're not left worried about it in the Courage of Adam. But then in Sky War, it pays off. Whereas if this were Filmation, that would have been just the setup to get Adam captured, and we would have never heard anything about that ever again.
I think it's a little nugget that if you don't know, you would probably just blow off and not even pay attention.
That's what I'm saying.
To it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it does, you know, I mean, we'll talk about it more in the next episode, but it does, when you get to the next episode, go, oh, that's what they were talking about. But in
Right.
this episode, I think you just don't even pay attention to it.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
easy to overlook. Yeah.
Yep.
And then they fly
I'll
off,
get into my big conceit later.
Alan
but-
gets kidnapped.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Doesn't go down without a fight though.
There's some fighting.
But,
Yep.
gets separated from the power sword a bit too quickly. So
Yep. And then this is the part that bugs me. This is the I know you got caught on the kind of the Beastman thing. This is the part that bugs me. So they send the sword and a note to Randor.
yes.
Right. And this is Adam's sword.
Yes.
But it's the same sword we see with He-Man.
But it's not.
It is though.
This is also, I guess we should have. I guess that would be a first time too. This is the first time we see the condensed power sword. Because remember, Adam cannot easily carry around He-Man's power sword. We saw that in the beginning. So now, after his first transformation, and upon changing back to Adam after the events of the beginning, the power sword now also changes form and size. It is definitely smaller, and around the hilt where the He-Man power sword has all the guards and everything going out. You audio listeners can't see the weird things I'm doing with my hand right now. But Adam's has all that closed up, and it's much simpler looking. Yes, it is a similar sword.
It is,
but it is not
the,
identical.
it is
This is not Filmation power sword.
This is the equivalent of Superman putting his glasses on and becoming Clark Kent. Like that's how different this is. It's not like, it is quite clear that both Skeletor and Randor should have gone, oh crap, this is the same sword, and this is the same guy.
But remember, Randor also had a similar looking sword in the beginning when he was fighting Skeletor.
Okay, and he doesn't know when He-Man shows up, he doesn't recognize that that's basically the same sword.
It's a similar sword. I think.
I mean, does he just think that he goes to the same blacksmith? Is that like?
Well, I think they
He-Man
did a good job in this series of kind of doing with the weaponry like a similar motif to where there's like an Eternian style of sword, and they're all similar. I mean, we'll see it later. The spoiler alert, Zodak has a similar sword in his lair when we meet him down the road. Like, they did a good job. Here's my thing. Coming from Filmation, where it was literally the exact same power sword and nobody else on the planet had a sword even remotely looking like that, for them to do a smaller condensed version and then to have other people have similar swords, I feel does a better job of hiding it than Filmation ever did.
I think Filmation wasn't even trying. I mean,
right.
Going back to Filmation, Adam looked the same as He-Man, but without a tan and more clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So this series is right from the get-go. It looks like they're trying to make this huge difference between Adam and He-Man in voice, in look, everything.
Yep.
So therefore, I think the sword should be so noticeably different that it's not even close. And I don't feel like they do that with this. Yeah. There's an effort. There is, it's not 100% the same, but I think it's close enough that it breaks the illusion a little bit for me. But that you got stuck on the Beastman part. I got kind of stuck on this one, but I digress and we move forward.
I can't say you're wrong. Just, I feel they accomplished it. So.
Okay.
But yeah, so now it's up to Man-Arms, and here's where we're getting very Disappearing Act vibes, which is a classic Filmation episode where Adam's taken prisoner and Man-Arms has to try and there they also have to locate the missing power sword. But anyways,
I got to go back. I'm sorry, I forgot something earlier.
Yeah, you're good. What you got?
During the training sequence, I wanted to make mention of this because I think it's important that Orko doesn't know that it's a training sequence. He doesn't know that they're robots and
that He-Man's
holograms or
training
whatever.
sequence, yes.
And he jumps in to try to help He-Man and actually takes a laser blast, which turns out to be fake, but he's willing to take a laser blast to try to help and protect He-Man. So I think that is something important to note, because this isn't the cowardly, useless Orko that we're used to. This is a different Orko,
right?
Who is willing to do the things that he needs to do.
But
so
then right after that, he's also able to swim in lava because he thinks it's fake.
Correct.
So.
They kind of
went to the both extremes in one scene, which kind of
they went into the kind of cartoon nature of it, that you know the bomb can explode in your face and you're just left with like black smoke. You know, it's like it went Looney Tunes a little bit there for a second, but yes, I just wanted to, as far as personality goes, a little bit different with this Orko.
Absolutely. One thing I want that you reminded me of, which I can't believe I forgot, but we can just kind of talk about all as one right now. I love the runner of the Doomseeker and Cringer throughout this episode, which I have a feeling you did too. So,
I thought it was cool, and I think for me in Filmation, it was a lot of times where Skeletor would just kind of have these like little vision portal things that he could just kind of see what was going on.
The crystal ball on the
Like he could see what's going on in the palace. He could see what's going on over here. He can see what's going on there. And they never really explained it. Like, why doesn't he just follow He-Man around and just see when he transforms back or whatever? But here they kind of use it as, you know, this is a little kind of drone basically that Triclops has that's going around spying. And so, you know, if it's able to get into a place and see certain things, Skeletor is able to see those things. So I feel like it's explained a lot better here than in Filmation.
No, completely agree. So we are Adam's trapped. Skeletor set the timer. It's up to Man-at-Arms. So his first matter of business is to send Cringer and Orko with the power sword to try and infiltrate Snake Mountain. I love this. I love, you know, I was on about Cringer quite a bit in the beginning about him not being able to talk, but I think this episode in particular has a lot of great Cringer personality, where they're not just treating him as Steed, even though he does not have a actual voice.
Well, and the animation does a good job of kind of bringing out that personality without any lines, you know? So yeah, I agree. And then you see, you know, Orko change him into a purple cat, so that he can kind of go undercover. And, you know, once again, a little bit different Orko because his magic works kind of the way that he wants to. So yeah. No,
I like that. And you know, I know you're not big on the stupid villains, but that is a great scene where Whiplash makes a comment that Skeletor needs to feed Panther a little bit more.
Oh no, I was perfectly fine with that. The thing that gets me is the doofy voices, like, oh my God, you know, whatever, just the stupid voices. But no, then him going by, I think what it was, a Beastman and Whiplash, and
I thought it was Whiplash and Clawful, but yeah,
maybe
one of those duos.
Maybe it was Triclops and Whiplash. Anyway, it's definitely Whiplash because he's the one that makes a comment on it. You know, I thought that was fine. You know. Yeah.
And meanwhile, at the same time, Man-at-Arms is still working on a robot, and this is straight out of Disappearing Act, where he sends the robot to be He-Man.
Meanwhile, the Masters are sneaking in kind of a back way into Snake Mountain to also kind of launch like a little bit of a rescue mission. So it's, you know, he did multiple things, Man-at-Arms. He sent, you know, Cringer and Orko to do, you know, try to get the sword to him. He sent the robot to kind of distract Skeletor, and then he had a plan with the Masters to kind of break in through a side entrance of some sort. So it was, you know, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to put all our eggs in one basket, and if it doesn't work, we're done. He has multiple kind of phases to it, and this is just it's a smart Man-at-Arms. So
Yeah, it's one of these has got to work. One of these
Yeah.
has got to get in. Like,
Yeah.
and and again, Cringer gets close, but that Doomseeker pops up again. It chased him earlier. It's chasing him now.
Mhm.
And
The
but
Masters come in. They actually do break out Adam,
yep.
and then
But we're still without the power sword because Cringer still has the
when they
power
do
sword.
come across the power sword, Adam is reluctant to use it. He feels like
Yep.
he can be Adam and he can do the things that need to be done to help the Masters win this fight without the need of He-Man. And tries to do it on his own, and he is doing okay. Like he's athletic and he's jumping around and he's doing things, but ultimately he's just not good enough by himself without He-Man.
Yeah. Yep.
So
No, they're doing good until Skeletor unveils his latest creation. We see the giant bone monster.
Sorry, let me go back, because before the evil warriors encountered the Masters in Snake Mountain, they figure out that this He-Man that's not really He-Man, it's a robot, is the robot. Like Skeletor blasts him and finds out
Yep.
it's a robot. The one thing I didn't know about that, though, or that I kind of question myself, is like, so far Skeletor's he's only encountered He-Man one time, right? This is the second time ever that he's encountered He-Man.
That we've seen.
Yeah.
I
My question is, how does he? Because immediately after he blasts it and it turns into the robot, he's like, "Oh crap, we've been duped," basically, and sends the evil warriors kind of after, like, go basically go to where Adam's at. But I don't know how Skeletor knew that the original He-Man that he encountered wasn't that same robot. Like, he could have been a robot the whole time, for all he knew.
No, because Skeletor, even in that encounter, Skeletor did blast He-Man.
Yeah, but
And
maybe he just got him in the right spot this time. I don't know. I think he was really quick to, like, I would think that if that happened, your first reaction would be like, what the heck? What's going on here? But his first reaction is, oh crap, like, we've been duped. Let's fix this. So I would have liked to see a little bit more hesitation there, like a little bit of surprise, that I didn't feel like we got. But anyways, sorry, go ahead.
I'll get into a rant later, but I do feel like it implies at the beginning of this episode that there has been more time from, like, it hasn't just been the beginning and then this episode. Like there's stuff we haven't seen. You know what I mean?
I didn't pick up on that, but okay. I could see it.
Yeah, nothing major, but I don't feel like this episode is like it was just yesterday that they celebrated getting the king back.
Okay.
So but yeah, so Adam finally realizes he needs the power of He-Man, as this bone monster easily takes out all of the other masters in a single swipe. We finally get our transformation. And here's my transformation talk, since this is the true first regular transformation. I loved it in the beginning when Adam struggled to pick up the sword. It drops. He uses all his effort to swing it up. He's fully committed. We just went over that in the beginning, part 2.
Yep.
Now, every time that we start this transformation with Adam having to use so much effort to get that sword up, even though we now know that it condenses down while he's Adam, just bugs the crap out of me. Like, it was awesome for the beginning. I don't understand why they kept doing it. Why Adam kept transforming with the big power sword instead of them making an actual stock. The beginning one should have been just the beginning, and they should have actually made a stock transformation sequence for the rest of the series, in my opinion.
My retort to that, and we don't know how things work on Eternia. We don't know how the physics work, but in our world, you can make something condense in size, but you can't make it lose weight. Like it just gets more dense. So it would even if you shrunk it down, it's still going to be the same weight. And he's still, as Adam, the same guy with the same strength. So it's, you know what I'm saying? Like even if you make the sword smaller, it's still going to have the same weight to it.
But then he would not be able to actually use it while he's Adam, and we'll see him many times throughout this series use that sword, no problem, while he's Adam.
See, I don't. Have we seen him as Adam so far use the sword just individually?
I thought he used it when he got back. Once he got freed. What
When
is
he
that?
got-
What he was
when he
fighting
first-
against Whiplash?
When he first
with?
got freed, no, he like jumped off of a wall and tried to kick one of them, and then
I thought he had the sword.
blasted.
Then I could be wrong.
Maybe
But-
he tried to use it. I don't remember him using it there.
But we will see him. He will
Yeah.
use that
Okay.
sword, no problem.
Gotcha.
So, it's a magical.
Maybe it's something that they overlooked. I don't know.
That's my irk for the ongoing transformation sequence.
Okay.
And I do feel honestly it's a little too long. I think it should just be a little more streamlined. You know, it was like, again, in the beginning, first transformation, it was cool cutting to outside of Grayskull and seeing the yellow light pouring out. But it's like, do we need that every time? You know, Filmation is iconic because of its simplicity, in my opinion. You know, and
Right.
I think we needed a simpler transformation ongoing.
I mean, there is also the part with Filmation. They were doing it with Filmation cells.
Well,
and
yes,
so it made more sense to have the same transformation pretty much every single time because you just reuse the same cells.
Right.
Whereas this, they're actually, making that stuff individually. So having individual sequences kind of makes sense for this as well. So
yeah, but they didn't do that. That would have been something else too if they would have done, like, instead of doing the cut to Grayskull every time, instead it's like more he just stands there and is transformed.
Yeah.
Like we don't do a cutaway at all. We just do him transforming if he's in Snake Mountain, in the background Snake Mountain. If he's out in the that would have been cool too to see that, like just him kaboom changing.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's where I kind of agree with you that since you're not using Filmation cells here, you don't have to do that same thing. Like you could do, an individual transformation for each thing and each time that he does it. So
right.
But
so then as He-Man, he still realizes that he can't fight this monster head on, and instead he lures him to the lava field, which he is too heavy to support, and defeats him that way. I always like that twist at the end there, where you think He-Man's just going to go up and start punching, but instead he uses his wits.
And then you've got Panther chasing the little,
the Doomseeker.
The Doomseeker around, and then he kind of comes across the Masters and Battle Cat there, and Battle Cat smashes that Doomseeker kind of on the ground, and I think Panther kind of realizes, hey, I should turn back. And
I like the stare down. Like in the first episodes, they are really playing up the fact of Battle Cat and Panther, He-Man and Skeletor. Like they're really making an effort to make Panther a legit sidekick to Skeletor.
Yeah.
And their rivalry, we get a lot of teasing here in these first few episodes.
Yeah, and then my favorite part of the episode is the very end where now all of a sudden you see just Cringer's got a new chew toy.
I love it. He's just sitting there within his paws. He's licking it. He's
and towards the end of the episode, like Cringer isn't like a tiny green cat. Like he looks the same size as Battle Cat. Like he is big at the end of that episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of plant. So I don't know. He doesn't look as feeble as say like Filmation Cringer.
And right off the bat, they're already showing like this is not just going to be him whimpering in the corner all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a full story arc in this episode without being able to talk. We see him, as Cringer getting ticked off at the Doomseeker, chasing it around, So I think he's a lot more well-rounded, even as Cringer in this series.
Yeah. So, and with no lines to do it with.
No lines.
It's like a good silent film or something. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we got no redesign to talk about this time, so we will get right into our Power Sword rating, and I will let you go first. So I'll redo the. For those of you who are just tuning in, I don't know why you're starting with episode 4, but all right, glad to have you. But so our Power Sword ranking is 3 Power Swords is the very best. An amazing episode, can't be better. 2 Power Swords is an above average episode. 1 Power Sword is a good, solid episode. We got a Cosmic Enforcer that's neutral, that's right down the middle, neither good nor bad. Then we got the Havoc Staffs. 1 Havoc Staff is bad, 2 Havoc Staffs is worse, 3 Havoc Staffs. This episode should be banished to Despondos for all eternity.
I think I'm going to go 1 Power Sword. I think it's pretty good. It doesn't blow me away. I think it really helps to kind of further develop Adam's character and, who he's trying to be and kind of that he wants to be that person for his dad, for the kingdom without being He-Man. But it's also kind of selfish of him to want that when He-Man can do so much good. So, I think that part plays out really well in this, but there's not a lot that makes me blown away. So I'm gonna give it 1 Power Sword.
See, this is tough for me, and this is a tough episode. So watching it, like we said, so I watched the beginning as a movie on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater. I then spent the next 3 weeks rewatching the beginning, parts 1, 2, and 3.
Waiting for the next.
Waiting for this. And then Courage of Adam comes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not blown away by it. There is a lot of good in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem is it's coming right off the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They made me wait for it. And then for this to be this episode, as in we just saw him become He-Man, and he is already questioning why he needs to continue being He-Man. I maintain to this day, if this episode were in the back half of season 1, it would be one of my all-time favorite episodes. If we had the opportunity to actually have him become He-Man, grow as He-Man, feel like they're winning the war against Skeletor, and him being like, okay, do I need to keep doing this? Because they're trying to tie in that Prince Adam No More thing with the disappearing act from Filmation, which sounds like a recipe for an amazing episode. But like you said, so if he's seen He-Man one time, if you're saying this, nothing happened in between, I, at least in my mind, have to imply that stuff happens in between to where Adam can feel like, you know what? He-Man's cool and all, but really it's me. Like this just feels like a lesson for later in the series.
I think it makes sense because we're still dealing with the immaturity of Adam. Like he has not had time yet to grow into this role and realize the responsibility, realize the importance of He-Man. And so in his mind, he's doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's being made to look like a coward, a wimp, all these things, mostly by Tila, but also by his old man.
I mean, Raynor does get into it too.
I think it's showing. I think if you did this towards the end of season 1, I don't think it would work for me because at that point he's matured enough in the role that he shouldn't feel and act that way. I think it makes sense for him to do it early on like this. because it's just he hasn't grown into that role yet. He's still that pampered kid that grew up in an era of peace.
I get what you're saying. I still think though that it would have. I need a bit more. We shouldn't be asking like, how does Skeletor even realize it's a robot? Maybe he just missed that spot before. Like a lot of those issues go away. Maybe even just at the mid-season. Like this would be, because they always take that mid-season break anyways.
Yep.
Like this could have been a nice reinforcement episode at the mid-season to go, no, this is the end of him maturing into that role. Like, I thought maybe I could do it without the power, but that power is needed and I need to use it for good.
Yeah.
So I am going to give this episode a Cosmic Enforcer.
Okay.
I struggled with it. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of stuff I like. I really feel it's an odd placement. I felt that from the moment it first aired until rewatching it today. So I got to stick with that. All right, guys, we are out of here. Stay tuned. Episode 5 is going to be coming your way soon, where we take to the skies for Sky War. Until next time, go watch on Amazon Prime.
Oh, come on.